You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I am your host, Nesbit, and today we're going to keep on with our dive into the Heavy Metal Mixtape compilation, released by Night Demon on a limited edition cassette in October of 2015. So this is Heavy Metal Mixtape. So we've been through 13 tracks, and we have a bunch of great tracks coming up. Some great bands, some heavy hitters. If you're just joining us, the Heavy Metal Mixtape is a limited edition cassette compilation released by Night Demon. So it was released, and it quickly sold out. And all of this with no pre-orders and not really any lead-up or announcements or anything. They just kind of dropped it. Also with a limited special edition with a Heavy Metal Mixtape poster and a 1-inch button. So there was a special edition of this. It was released October 31st, so Halloween of 2015. But there was actually a limited amount of them available for sale at the Frost and Fire Festival a week early. Here's Jarvis.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. We weren't going to do any kind of pre-order or... You know, we really don't do a lot of lead-up stuff like that with Night Demon. I mean, we like to have something ready to go where we know we're ready to unleash it to the public. A lot of people do a lot of build-up, or they'll say, coming soon. I'm not going to tell you what it is, or we're thinking about doing this. And it's like, you can't be successful when you're just constantly showing your cards like that. You have to know that you have something solid before you come out with something. So this was one of those cases. And I remember I think we just did an email blast to our subscribers, the people that subscribe to our website, which you could do at nightdemon.net right there on the homepage. And I think we did a Facebook post on just our band page, and people went wild. It was awesome. And everybody started sharing it before... and nobody had... I'm sure they could see the track listing and know if they had heard the songs or not. But yeah, it was limited to 666 hand-numbered copies. The first 100, I believe, came with a poster and a 1-inch pin, a 1-inch button. And that was like a cool thing that we had added in there. And I really like that. I still have one poster and one button. I usually try and save one of everything, but those went really quick. And I believe this tape sold out within a few days. And it was really, we were really shocked by it, to be honest, because a lot of these tracks had already been out there.
So no pre-order, no lead up, just an email blast to the fans a week before the album comes out. Here's the description from that email. It says, once quoted as the most widely practiced American art form, the mixtape format became the most common way in the tape trading scene for underground metal bands to be exposed to new audiences all over the world. With the advancement of the digital age, the mixtape has become a lost art. We took it upon ourselves to reach out to these bands and compile what we feel in our hearts is a true and current representation of the best heavy metal coming out of America today. Much like Metal for Mothers, Metal Massacre, or Rock's Caliber marked those moments in time of the bands that were leading the charge back in their day. We believe this collection embodies the dominant American heavy metal of this generation. This is the sign of our times. So, that's a cool description. Great lineup. Also, very cool that almost all of these bands have some sort of connection or tie to Night Demon. So it was really a cool mix of bands that represented a scene. Here's Dusty.
I feel like it was a really nice combination of all the bands. You know, Riot 5, Blade Killer, Bat, Raven, Spellcaster, all bands that we have direct relationship with. Midnight, of course. You know, Visigoth, Venomous Maximus, Savage Master, Widow. These are all bands that we really all, you know, get along with. So it was pretty easy to get everybody on board. I feel like it was a nice combination of all the bands. I feel like it flowed well. It really let you know where those bands were at that specific time, and really showcases everybody. You know, I really think that it was a good combination of all the bands. We put it together the right way, and I don't think it really could have been done any better, in my honest opinion. So I think that we really knocked it out of the park with putting that first Heavy Metal Mixtape together.
So we've covered side A, and now we're going to continue on with side B. Okay, so continuing on with side B, we get a short sample to set up the next batch of songs.
Are you going to help me or not?
All right. I'll tell you what to do. Go that way. Really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
The Better Off Dead sample. Yeah, it's pretty much a metaphor, or it's a premonition for Night Demon and the path we were on at that point. Don't let anything stand in your way. But what a fucking hilarious movie. One of those great John Cusack films of the 80s.
So classic clip, John Cusack's character getting instructions on how to ski. I don't know, that guy will always be Booger from Revenge of the Nerds to me, the guy from that clip. So from that, we get our next track, and it's by Visigoth, and it's called Call of the Road. So it's kind of a different song than I'm used to hearing from Visigoth. Still a really kick-ass track. It's from Final Spell from 2012, which is their first EP. So they have two other solid full lengths, The Revenant King in 2015 and Conqueror's Oath in 2018, both of which are amazing albums. So if you haven't heard Conqueror's Oath, I highly recommend you check it out. if you're into epic metal or power metal at all, or even any kind of like classic traditional metal, check it out. My buddy Fergal recommended that one to me a while back, and it blew me away, and I've been a big fan ever since. So this track is a little different from what I'm kind of accustomed to hearing from Visigoth, but it's pretty awesome. Here's Jameson Palmer of Visigoth.
I'm Jameson Palmer. I play guitar and sing backing vocals for Visigoth from Salt Lake City. If you like swords, dice, armor, and heavy metal, we are your band. Call of the Road is one of our most boogie-oriented songs. It's a Saxon, Dio, and Priest-influenced rocker about our burning desire to play shows outside of Salt Lake City. It was written back in 2011 or 2012 before we had ever toured outside of Utah, and it was originally released on our 4-track Final Spell EP.
So in this track, Visigoth proudly showing their love for classic metal. The lyrics, wheels burning, the road is calling, unleash the thunder in our hearts, Saxon, Dio, and Priest on the stereo, cities change but the songs remain, and it's time to hit the road. This is such a great song. I love it. The instrumental part in the middle of the song with the harmonized guitars, it blows me away every time. Love that part. So Visigoth is actually one of the bands that has a super close relationship with Night Demon.
Visigoth. This is just a great rockin' song I think it's about being on the road. Although I don't even think they toured at the point when they wrote this song. I mean, I could be mistaken. If they did, it was a really short one. But we met them also at that 2014 Ragnarocker Fest and became close friends with them. And did Salt Lake City many times and stayed on Jameson and Maddie's couch and on their floor. And even at Jake's house once. And then I ended up actually managing the band, and they've been my oldest client. I've managed them since 2015. And it's funny because this song isn't the greatest representation of the band. This is pretty rockin' and it's got some bluesy parts, which are really cool. But they're more of an epic kind of power metal band. And you can hear it in Jake's vocals on this song, and that's what I love about this track. And I think all bands of the new wave of traditional heavy metal kind of start out with a bit of an innocent party vibe and a very kind of like optimistic approach. But it's like, you know, taking the inspiration of going out on a Friday night and just rage it for the love of heavy metal music and the lifestyle, kind of like a Heavy Metal Heat kind of thing. But, you know, I think this is a really, really good peek inside the origins of Visigoth, and it gets much, much more epic in their career from here.
So Night Demon and Visigoth, both very close, both sharing a place on this Heavy Metal Mixtape compilation.
Heavy metal compilations seem to be at their best when they feature bands that are somehow related to each other. Maybe bands have shared a bill on festivals, maybe bands have toured together, or maybe they're just sort of playing the same style at the same time. My favorite compilations serve as snapshots of a particular scene at a point in time.
So Visigoth, another great band, another band who's played Night Demon's Frost and Fire Festival. So that brings us to the next track, Savage Master, and their song Vengeance is Steel. So Savage Master, they're formed in October of 2013. Lead singer Stacy Savage, I think she has an awesome voice. They have 3 full lengths and a couple of EPs. This track is actually from their 2016 full length With Whips and Chains. So this song was kind of released on the mixtape a year before that album came out. So it's an advanced kind of sneak peek of this track in its demo form. So this is a demo version that appeared on the mixtape. So here's Stacy Savage and Adam Neal of Savage Master.
Hey, this is Adam Neal.
And this is Stacy Savage from Savage Master.
It was really great appearing on the Heavy Metal Mixtape compilation. They used a demo version of our song Vengeance is Steel, which we later re-recorded for the album With Whips and Chains.
And it was fun appearing alongside so many awesome bands.
As far as heavy metal compilations go, I think they're a really great way to find new bands and check out different scenes of bands. And as far as Savage Master goes, we've been very lucky to be on some really good ones like the Heavy Metal Mixtape and the Metal Massacre compilations.
We just recorded our 4th studio album. It'll come out later this year. It is called Those Who Hunt at Night.
So that is cool news, a new full length coming from them. This band, Savage Master, played a crucial role in this mixtape actually coming together and happening.
Savage Master. So again, if I'm not saying that without these guys or without us being marooned in Louisville, Kentucky and staying at their house for a week that this mixtape would not have come about. But that was definitely the kind of like, I've got to get off my ass and fucking do something right now. We can't just sit around anymore on this tour. And that's when I really had the motivation to actually contact bands, put this idea together, and really implement it. So, of course, we had to have Savage Master on the comp. We had just played with them that week, and they were one of our first choices anyway. But they're a great, great fucking band. Such an epic stage performance from them too. I mean, with Stacy Savage just fronting the band, like, I don't even want to try and categorize or describe her, but all the other guys in the band are just, they're hooded with big chains and padlocks around their necks that, like, kind of secure the hood on and keep it from coming off, almost like it's like a executioner's mask, but they're also the hangman. It's a very cool concept, but definitely a really killer song. And again, just peeking into the origins of a lot of these bands. Savage Master has come a long way, and they're currently on their 4th full-length album. So enjoy this track.
Your
Another great track from another great band. I should also note that Savage Master has also played the Frost and Fire Festival more than once. They actually performed this song at the Frost and Fire Festival in 2015. A bootleg recording, not the best quality, but another Frost and Fire veteran, Savage Master.
On October 31st, 2015, Night Demon released Heavy Metal Mixtape. This collection of underground heavy metal was released on 666 hand-numbered limited edition cassettes. It sold out in nearly a week. Since then, many people have scoured the internet and paid insane prices to get a copy of this tape. Now in 2021, it is near impossible to find a copy new or used of Heavy Metal Mixtape. Until now. Night Demon has opened the vault and released a handful of original factory-sealed heavy metal mixtapes. These are available for subscribers only. For those of you who are late to the game, head over to nightdemon.net/subscriber. Sign up and head over to the subscriber-only store to get your copy of Heavy Metal Mixtape while they still left.
So next up on the Heavy Metal Mixtape, I'm starting to feel like Bill Peters here, but next up is Salvacion with Let Us Pray. So Let Us Pray, but that's Prey, P-R-E-Y, as in hunter and prey, which kind of makes sense if you see the single cover for this track, which is totally awesome, by the way. So they were formed in 2009, North Carolina. They have 4 full lengths and a bunch of singles, a bunch of EPs. This song was from the Way More Unstoppable album from 2011. They also had an EP named Let Us Pray, which it says in the liner notes, revamped, remixed, and relentless. And that came out in 2015. So the version on the mixtape is actually that remixed, revamped version from the EP. And if you listen to them back to back, there's a big difference in sound. So here's Elliot Madry, vocalist of Salvacion.
Hi, my name is Elliot Madry, and I'm the lead singer of Salvacion. Salvacion is a band that was started by Carlos Denogean with the intention of keeping the faith. He always talked about keeping the faith, the faith with a capital F, defending it, that true heavy metal and rock and roll freedom. Spread the word on that, So back in 2009, he grabbed a few buddies and hit the ground running in Wilmington, North Carolina. I think they, just due to their surroundings, ended up soaking up a healthy dose of rock and roll, which, I don't know if that was his original intention, but it definitely gave the band its own kind of identity and something that I truly thought shined within the band. There's been plenty of lineup changes over the years. There's been 3 albums and a couple EPs and singles, but, every single member that comes in is there to spread that faith and good times and, make sure we're a believer in it. Rock and roll. Yeah, our contribution to this, Heavy Metal Mixtape was a re-recorded version of a song called Let Us Pray. It was one of the first songs that Salvacion wrote back in the early days, and it was on the second album, kind of a staple track on that album, in my opinion. I personally had just recently joined the band and was a newcomer in 2015 when Jarvis asked us to be part of this mixtape. And, we were still fleshing out some new material with my contribution. So Carlos and I thought it'd be fun as a little stopgap to re-record the vocals on the song, and send it out that way. So it's a special place in my heart because, this version on the Heavy Metal Mixtape was the first thing released, the first Salvation track released with my voice on it. And, still proud of it to this day. Heavy metal compilations are great, they're a good place to find new jams to rock out to, new bands that you haven't heard yet. And when you make music that you like and you get put on these compilations, then, you end up finding more bands you like. It's pretty simple. You get paired up with the good ones. I also kind of treat it as a little competition that no one knows about, or maybe they're doing the same thing. I don't know. But we're never the best band on the compilation, but we're never the worst either. So it's kind of a simultaneously, gives me something to strive for, but, also a little ego boost at the same time as we land squarely in the middle. But, that's how it goes.
Salvacion, another killer band from the North Carolina area. These guys really took care of us on this 2015 Curse of the Damned tour, specifically the drummer, Carlos Denogean, who also played drums in Vulture, Weed Eater, Pounder. I mean, the guys played drums in so many bands, but, like us, he was a real hungry for the scene kind of guy. He did everything he could. He was putting on shows out there in Wilmington, North Carolina. He was going to put on a festival. He had played in many bands that had played at Frost and Fire. He was always ready to tour, no matter what. He was playing in, I think he was in Walpurgis as well. I mean, he was just playing with everybody that he could and just really wanted to, he was an ambassador for North Carolina metal, but he really did just want to get out of there and spread his wings a bit, and he was able to do that. I use the word was not lightly because, unfortunately, Carlos passed away. He passed away in August of 2018, and we were touring North America for the Darkness Remains album, and we had a show scheduled in Richmond, Virginia. And Richmond has always been not always, but we usually stop there on tours and play at this venue called Strange Matter when we're headlining. However, Richmond, Virginia has not had a great heavy metal scene at all, which is surprising because bands like Municipal Waste come from there. I guess they're more thrash metal, party metal, but still, there's just not a very good scene for heavy metal, at least for Night Demon out there. We've played there with Raven too, and they're just every time we're out there hasn't been many people. But, Carlos always being down for the cause, was trying to get his guys to come up and open the show for us, and they just couldn't get it together. I think their guitar player, Reed, I believe his father had passed away that week, and he was having a pretty rough time, and very understandable. And Carlos said he was going to make it out to the gig anyway. He was just going to drive up from North Carolina and come and hang out. And we thought that was really cool. But unfortunately, the day before we played that show, he had passed away from, I don't know, an apparent brain aneurysm, or I don't know if it was ever really known what really happened, but it was just really sad and very eye-opening. You know, we're here one day and we're gone the next. We just don't know. And his dad, Jose, and his mom, Ruth, were always really kind to us. We've stayed at their house. We've stayed at Carlos's house many times, coming out there, him and his parents' house. And much like on those tours where we had nothing to do, he always was very gracious and hosted us, no matter what was going on. But his dad still travels and goes to see the bands and is very active keeping his son's legacy alive. So if you ever see the hashtag live like Los, it's basically live like Carlos. And we all aspire to do that. Live in the moment, go after your dreams, because you never know when it's going to end.
So kind of a sad story there, but you know, it's true what Jarvis says about live in the moment, because you never know. You know, something as simple as like coronavirus kind of taught us all that. I mean, I think of the shows I didn't go to or the bands I didn't check out in the year leading up to COVID because of some stupid reason, or I thought I was like too tired or I was too lazy or something, and I'm like kicking myself now. You gotta take advantage while you can. So yeah, kind of a bit of a sad story there. There's actually pictures of Carlos if you want to check it out in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. But the band continues on, and they live on forever on the Heavy Metal Mixtape.
Gonna rock till the end of days. Let us pray.
Man, the last half of that song really kicks ass. That's a great one. So after that, we have another sample, and again, it's from the movie Dazed and Confused. Maybe one of the most quoted lines from the movie, at least with me and my friends. And it's by one of the best characters in the movie.
All right.
The next sample, another one from the Dazed and Confused movie, the Matthew McConaughey. All right. That's a classic phrase used many times over. You know, it's funny because this comp came out, about 6 years ago. And I think that's gotten even more and more popular through the years. And I think it's going to continue to grow the more that movie gains extreme cult status. I mean, it already has, but I think a newer generation is even getting turned on to it. Speaking of, another short backstory of mine with the Dazed and Confused movie, on my 12th birthday, my mom said, hey, you can round up 10 or 14 of your friends and we can all go see a movie. We could take them to the movies and then we'll go get pizza or something. So we went to the Carriage Square Theater in Oxnard, which is no longer there. And then we went to Pizza Hut, which was right next door, which that's when like Pizza Hut was like an actual restaurant. They served pizza in hot pans, and there was a video arcade. It was a whole thing. It wasn't like the real shitty kind of thing that it is now. But I digress. Anyway, I remember that I wanted to see the movie Tombstone. And at the time, I was going to like a Christian private school, and my mom was kind of like, I don't want to be getting reports from any parents or whatever that, I took all these kids to see some shoot 'em up Western. And so I'm like, okay. She's like, just pick something else. So I picked this, I said, oh, there's this movie Dazed and Confused. And, the cover of the movie just had like a happy face on it or something. So I don't think she looked too deep into that. And so we all went, and the way that it went in those days is basically like me and all my friends. I think there was really like 10 to 14 of us. I mean, we would sit in the front row, and then my mom would sit in the back, kind of chaperone, but not, kind of let us have our own time. And she'd just sit in the back, make sure nobody dies, right? So I just remember this stuff happening through this movie, sex and a lot of pot smoking. And I mean, we were just loving it, but I just kept during the whole movie thinking my mom, oh man, she's going to be so pissed. But she was totally cool about it. And at the end of it, she just had a really good feeling and a really big smile on her face. And I remember, I hadn't put two and two together. I was 12 years old, but I remember her saying how much she enjoyed that film. And it was because the movie is about a class of seniors in high school that graduate in the year 1976. And basically they have, over the summer of 76, which is the bicentennial, which is the 200th anniversary of the United States. And oddly enough, that's the year my mom graduated high school, and she was the class president of her high school. So I think she related to it so much, and it was like a big blast from the past back to the summer of 76. And I think that's really cool, and I always think about that when I think about that movie to this day.
So on to the next track. So from what I can hear from listener feedback and talking to fellow Night Demon fans, this one is a real fan favorite on the tape. It's Venomous Maximus. The song is Through the Black.
Seems like I'm lost in the will of
such a cool track. Venomous Maximus, so formed in 2010, and this track is from their 2012 album Beg Upon the Light. So this band is just so unique sounding to me. It's really, really cool. A bit more evil and kind of doomy sounding than traditional heavy metal, maybe. Whatever it is, it's a cool combination that they got going on. Here's Christian Larson, guitar player for Venomous Maximus at the time of this compilation.
Hey, this is Christian Larson. I used to play in Venomous Maximus. Currently, I have 2 new bands, Necrofire and Night Cobra. Big fan of heavy metal compilations. The Heavy Metal Mixtape introduced me to a whole bunch of new bands I hadn't heard of. Back in the day, there was a comp called Heavy Metal Killers. Found out about a whole bunch of bands through that too. So there are only positive things to say about compilations. The song we did for Venomous on this compilation was from the second record. The second record, we went in a much more heavy metal direction, and this was one of those songs.
Sticking with the Texas vibe of Dazed and Confused, we move on to Venomous Maximus from Houston, Texas. These guys were super cool. Again, another band that were just very solid for Night Demon. They were very good friends of ours. We had put on a show for them. We had booked them to come to Ventura, and I think their tour fell apart, but we ended up becoming friends. And every time we'd go out to Houston, again, it was the same story. Greg, the singer, actually tattooed Dustin's Night Demon sigil that he has on his wrist. And Christian Larson from the band, who's now in Necrofire and Night Cobra, 2 awesome bands. He's always been very solid and a very good friend to us. He's also the promoter of Hell's Heroes, which is basically the Frost and Fire of Texas. It's a traditional metal festival out there, which Night Demon will be playing in 2022. Sorry I blew the lid on that, but whatever. If anybody's listening here and excited about that, we will be back in Houston for that festival in the spring of 2022. So Venomous Maximus, killer band. I remember, let's go back. It's funny, all these things are happening on this tour, on the Curse of the Damned tour in 2015. Venomous Maximus was doing their record release show at a legendary venue called Fitzgerald's in Houston. And they had asked Night Demon to be direct support, which was great and worked out great for our tour. However, this day was very stressful because Greg, the singer and rhythm guitar player, had gone to jail. He had gotten locked up, I believe, the night before for drugs. I don't know. It may have been just weed, but I'm not sure. I know he was into some pretty hardcore stuff. So anyway, they just didn't know. It was a waiting game the whole day if the show was going to happen, if he was going to get out, and they were trying everything they could to get him out. He ended up getting out before the show and was able to play, which was awesome. But it was like, the clock was ticking all day long. And so we really wanted to play, and there was a really great pre-sale for that show. So we really wanted to play in front of the Houston crowd. And I mean, that was one of our biggest merch nights of the tour. I remember that was a really good showing for us. And actually, I don't know if any of this is meant for the mixtape episode. Maybe it goes into the early days episodes when we start covering that. But all this stuff just brings up these memories. But I remember, I used to yell at the band on stage. It was like not something I'm very proud of. I think I was just such an intense band leader back then. If we were late on a song or if we weren't coming in quick enough, and I wasn't even realizing that, hey, the audience could probably see what I'm doing or hear what I'm doing, and it's embarrassing for the other guys on stage. And I was just so in my own head then. And I remember I yelled at Dustin on stage, like, go, like, let's go into the next song or something. We had a great set, but after the set, I mean, I could tell he was really irritated or I was pissed off or something. And we ended up like chest bumping each other, like as we're loading our gear off stage, like kind of like a physical altercation. And that had never happened, and it was like, get your shit together. I got it together, just, I don't know. It ended there. I mean, I remember apologizing immediately after that. That's just kind of how things have been in this band occasionally. There's so much intensity. There's so much riding on what we're doing. We've given up everything in our lives for this. And I think sometimes moments get tense. And, the older we get, the better we're getting at that. That's for sure. I know I am. I'm working hard on that every day. But there was just so much intensity and the energy surrounding that whole night with Greg getting locked up and the uncertainties and just our hunger as a young band to really leave our mark. I'll always remember that.
So that's a behind-the-scenes Venomous Maximus story from Jarvis. And when I hear these stories, I can't wait to get into the early days episodes and the history and the formation of Night Demon. So that's coming up soon on the Night Demon Heavy Metal podcast. We're going to get into all that. But that's it for this episode of the podcast and the Heavy Metal Mixtape. And remember, you can listen to the entire tracks from the mixtape in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. There's also more info on the compilations that were mentioned by the bands in these episodes, and more information on all these bands too in the subscribers section. I know I mentioned it before, but as weeks go by, the bonus material in the subscribers section just gets bigger and bigger. You could spend hours in there digging around and watching stuff and listening to demos, and I don't know, be sure to check it out. I also want to mention there's a very limited number of these mixtapes still available in the subscriber section. Very limited now. There was 666 copies of this mixtape made, and these are a few that were kind of put aside in the Night Demon's archive. So they're available now in the subscriber section. Once they're gone. So be sure to grab one. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know I really enjoyed this episode. I'm loving going through these tracks on the Heavy Metal Mixtape. You can always reach me at Nesbit with one T at nightdemon.net. Until next time, this is Nesbit signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.